Welcome to today's Explainer. You know, literally every single structure that governs our modern world, how we write, how we measure time, even how we organize our societies, traces its roots back to one absolutely groundbreaking administrative blueprint. Today, we're diving into the rise of Mesopotamia. We're going to explore the nuts and bolts of how human beings shifted from just trying to survive as nomads to building incredibly complex codified civilizations. And as you'll see, that ancient shift laid the permanent groundwork for, well, us, modern humanity.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, the land between rivers. So, the word Mesopotamia actually translates directly to the land between rivers, and we're specifically looking at the region sandwiched right between the mighty Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Now, these rivers were far, far more than just a convenient place to get a drink of water. They provided the absolute perfect geographic and agricultural base ingredients to fundamentally change the entire trajectory of human history. Literally, without the predictable, life-giving flow of these two rivers, the leap from wandering nomads to a static, centralized civilization, it would have been completely impossible. Let's move along and see exactly how this builds. It's like a giant domino effect of human progress. First, the river floods leave behind this incredibly rich, fertile soil. That naturally leads to farming, specifically a massive surplus of wheat and barley. And here's the real game changer. That caloric surplus is the exact catalyst that allowed populations to absolutely explode in density. Once people didn't have to spend every single waking hour desperately searching for their next meal, they could specialize. Because of that, these tiny farming settlements inevitably grew into massive, bustling, powerful cities like Uruk, and Babylon. Humanity wasn't just settling down anymore, we were structuring ourselves.
Part 2, inventions that changed everything. When people started gathering in these new, organized cities, innovation just exploded. The people of Mesopotamia birthed mathematics, complex calendars, and the earliest forms of law. But these weren't just random strokes of genius. They were absolutely crucial administrative necessities. Think about it. When you suddenly have thousands of citizens crammed into an urban center, you need math to track all that grain and manage wealth, right? You need precise calendars to predict when the rivers will flood, so you can coordinate your farming. All these mind-blowing innovations evolved purely out of the need to manage the staggering complexity of early city life. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer magnitude of one specific invention, cuneiform. By pressing little symbols into wet clay tablets, the Mesopotamians created one of the absolute earliest forms of writing on Earth. Now, we often think of early writing as a beautiful way to tell stories, but honestly, fundamentally, cuneiform was the ultimate tech for scalable administration and tracking wealth. The ability to permanently record a transaction or a legal decree, that literally revolutionized human power structures forever. There was no going back. Part 3, Hammurabi and the Law. So the crucial point is that as these urban populations completely exploded, the old unwritten tribal rules just weren't cutting it anymore. They needed something solid. Enter King Hammurabi. He stepped up and established the first major instance of codified, centralized legal authority. The famous Code of Hammurabi basically replaced messy, localized disputes with one universal standard. By literally carving out laws designed to bring order and justice to society, he was just a grounded leader trying to organize a booming civilization. But in doing so, he established the core concept of universal justice that absolutely underpins our own modern legal frameworks today. Part 4, Ziggurats and the Gods. Now, let's slow down for a second and think about the deeper spiritual lives of these ancient people. The Mesopotamians worshipped in these magnificent, towering temples called ziggurats. They deeply believed that the gods directly controlled nature, the success of their vital harvests, and ultimately their human destiny. And it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? For a society so dependent on unpredictable rivers, you'd absolutely revere the forces that controlled your food supply. But here's the twist. These massive structures weren't just quiet places for spiritual reflection. They were actually the economic and administrative nerve centers of the entire city. The priests functioned kind of like early bureaucrats, managing the distribution of that crucial agricultural surplus. Back then, religion and the very survival of the state were inextricably tied together. The whole shebang was connected. Part 5, the Cradle of Civilization.
Looking at the grand, sweeping view of history, we see that over the centuries, several distinct and incredibly powerful empires rose to power and eventually collapsed in this region. We're talking about the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians, and the Assyrians. But what is absolutely critical to understand here is that when one empire fell, they didn't just wipe out all the previous knowledge. Not at all. As these empires rose and fell, they traded with distant lands, built even more magnificent cities, and assimilated past discoveries. They created this amazing, cumulative tech stack of civilization that just grew exponentially more sophisticated with every passing era.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why Mesopotamia is universally recognized today as the cradle of civilization. Those specific ancient kingdoms, sure, they eventually vanished into the sands of history, but their ideas didn't. The foundational concepts of writing, codified law, and mathematical administration became the permanent institutional DNA, the fundamental operating system, really, for countless civilizations that followed in their footsteps all across the globe.
So think about this for a second. When you check a calendar on your phone, when you do a bit of math to split a dinner bill, or even when you just follow a local traffic law today, you are actively participating in systems that were completely dreamed up thousands of years ago. The physical empires of Mesopotamia might be dust, but their operating system is literally still running our world today. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What creations from our own modern era will still be governing human behavior 5,000 years from now?